Oh, yes.
Welcome back once again, everyone. Today I'm very excited to bring you a review for the brand new Transformers Studio Series 86 Voyager class Scourge. I was finally able to track one of these guys down. Specifically, I got mine at a Kroger, of all places, which means I way overpaid for it because they throw like a 20% upsale charge on all their toys. They're ridiculous. But I finally got one. And Scourge is one of two new Voyagers in the first wave for Studio Series 86, the other one being Hot Rod, who I reviewed previously. And unlike Hot Rod, this guy is actually Voyager size. He's not just a deluxe with accessories, so I think I'll be a little more kind to his price than I was with Hot Rod. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Scourge's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions. At some point, we'll get a look at the backdrop that he comes with, and then we'll see Scourge himself in both his vehicle and robot modes. I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. Scourge comes in your standard Voyager class box for Studio Series, complete with big old window in the front, movie call out, name, branding, all that. Got his number here, it's 8605, so he's the 5th toy in this little subline of Studio Series toys. And then you get his artwork, which overall is fine. Like the other 86 toys, it has that very early generations feel to it. However, they went a little too crazy on the toy accuracy. Because the figure, as you can see, has these little holes in the thighs and the upper arms there, where the mushroom pegs go, which are a bit of an eyesore on their own. But they actually carried it over to the artwork. He's just got holes in his arms and legs for no reason. And he's got the screw holes from his wings, so... somebody must have told the artist, make it like the toy, and he's like, okay. Exactly like the toy. So, yeah, I gotta say the artwork is a real big blunder there. You should never draw screw holes on pictures of a Transformer. Here you get a close-up of his face. And then on the back, you get renders of Scourge in his vehicle and robot modes. He only takes 19 steps to transform, so he's very simple. But to be fair, Scourge has always been a bit of a shell former anyway, because his wings are just like his little space boat mode wrapped around him, so I'm not too surprised there. The backdrop that he's included with shows the little reformatting sequence from the movie, and it's called Heralds of Unicron, which is just an awesome name. And then a little bit of flavor text you get here says, Unicron reformats Thundercracker into Scourge. So that's interesting. They're taking a definitive stance on who actually becomes Scourge, unlike what they do with Cyclonus. Now, to be fair, Scourge's case is a little more cut and dry, because he doesn't have the major animation error that Cyclonus does during his reformatting. But it's still nice to see an official acknowledgement from Hasbro over definitively who is Scourge. And then when we turn it over here, you just get a much bigger artwork of him, complete with screw holes. And in fact, they drew the screws in the holes. What? What? Lay sigh. And then you get the little 86 emblem up top, which is actually part of the backdrop. Okay, here is the instruction book for Scourge. You can see this really nice render on the front with him pointing his weapon and kind of cocking his head at somebody. You get the movie logo, name, all that. Studio Series. We open this up. This shows you how to fold his wings out from how he is in the packaging. And then we just get straight into the transformation from robot to weird space boat mode. So that brings you here. Shows you how to, attach his weapon, his blast effect. And then, funny enough, this shows you how to do his little head popping out of the vehicle mode from the movie. And that one brief little scene that, even though it was so quick, it became just kind of such a cultural phenomenon with this character where every Scourge toy, people expect him to be able to pop his head up. So kind of neat that they dedicated all this right here to showing you how to do that. And it was designed into the toy and everything. And then lastly here, this just shows you how to attach his blast effect to his rifle and place that in his hand. And then right over here, we get a cross cell for his wave mate, Hot Rod. And now we get our look at Scourge's vehicle mode. You can see I have his weapon attached to the side, got his blast effect attached to his little roof-mounted cannon thing. And pretty hefty, right? Not necessarily huge for a Voyager, but bigger than most Scourge toys we received over the years. And yeah, he's a pretty tight little package. He's got little 5mm ports on the sides. He's got some sticking off the back, which is actually just the bottoms of his feet. Now, this is probably my least favorite part because these don't really look like any sort of like propulsion units per se, but yeah, it's not too bad. Underside is fairly clean. You can see his hands sticking out, which is kind of a no-no, but oh well. We don't display this from the bottom anyway. And I do like the blast effect. It's got this real cool squiggly purple laser thing going on there. It just slides right on here like so. Pretty nice. Of course, you can always attach it to this thing too if you want to. Oh, it's pretty loose. I think it gets loosened up from being pushed onto this, so maybe don't push it on all the way. I don't know. It fits a lot better now. So you may not want to leave it on here for long periods of time because it seems to stretch out a little 3mm hole. So yeah, you can do that, or if you want it nice and clean, just remove everything. Give it a nice standard vehicle mode. Overall, it's okay. Probably not the cleanest looking vehicle mode for the character, at least on the bottom. From the top, it looks great. Top, it looks really, really nice. They managed to integrate the head with its little cannon thing into the vehicle mode very well. So, you know, I dig it. It's pretty good. Okay, and here we get our other Generation Scourge toys. On the side, you just get the original Generations toy, which took a lot of liberties with the design and is usually considered more of like a classic Scourge, where he's got, you know, a redesign, kind of like the 2006 Classics toys. Then you get the Titans Return toy, which is more of a return to the character's original form, with a coloration that is much more focused on the G1 toy than is the cartoon. And of course, we got our new guy, which is very cartoon focused. Now, each one of these toys is pretty good in its own right. I know that the Generation Scourge was very, very popular and was everybody's go-to for a long time. And even after the Titans Return one came out, a lot of people still preferred this guy because he's just kind of a tighter package, even if he doesn't look like G1 Scourge all that much. He's also great because he's the only one of these guys that can actually fully integrate his weapon storage. His two guns tuck up inside of his wings, which is really, really cool. This guy has the same problem as our new one, where you got to stick his little rifle like off to the side. It looks kind of silly. So, you know, there's kind of a Scourge for each taste, right? You got the reimagining, the 80s toy-based one, and now a cartoon-based one. Here's a quick shot of Scourge with his partner in crime, Cyclonus. And you can see he's a good deal smaller. And that's something that holds true for both modes. Though, that is in scale with Cyclonus, who is generally a bit bigger than Scourge. So it actually works out quite well. And if you're somebody that likes to troop build and stuff, you could buy multiples of these guys, though I would refrain from buying multiples of the Scourge because there's apparently a sweep retool coming down the pike. That's a rumor, though. Don't quote me on it. You know, buy at your discretion, but I've been told there are sweeps coming, so it might be more worth your while to hold off. For Cyclonus, you could buy an extra one since there was, you know, that Armada guy who was in like all of one shot that may or may not exist. But yeah, it is cool seeing these two flying around together. Can't wait for Galvatron so you can really complete that trio. Okay, now we're going to do Scourge's modified vehicle mode with his head poking out. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to take these little wing bits, fold them out for a moment. You're going to lift these up. And you're going to separate his wing halves. Just kind of fold them out like so. There you go. Fold this forward. All right, you want to bend it up at this hinge right here. So you're keeping this part flat and then lifting this up like so. And you're going to bring the wings back in, and you want these tabs to line up with these slots right here in these little booster bits. So just try to get it all to line up all right. A little too high. Back it out. There we go. Kind of push it all back in. A little finicky, but you can get it. All right. You got everything in here. And you just kind of put everything back in vehicle mode. So you push these panels in. That. Fold these back in. Make sure that's down all the way. And there you go. You get Scourge's head poking up out of his vehicle mode. It's definitely silly looking, and it exists purely as a reference to that one scene in the movie, but a lot of people really like recreating that, so you have the option. And, you know, if you like, you could even have him shoot lasers out of his forehead. So, really neat. The Titan's Return toy could kind of do this too, but I think this pulls it off a little bit better. Alright, now it's time to fully transform this guy to his robot mode. And I'm just going to do it from this mode here because the steps are mostly the same. So you're going to kind of back this out again to separate the wings. So you lift these panels up. Yeah, crack these loose. There you go. There you go. Got that out. And then let's lift this up. Gonna pull this out. Swing this all the way in. And you want to kind of collapse everything down here as far as it'll go. And then slide all this to where these little tabs here just slide right in there. Get his head in place like this. Fold this back panel down. All right. Next, you want to bring his arms up. So you're going to untab them from the legs. Bring these shoulder panels upward. Just kind of get the arms nice and situated. All right. Untab his legs. Flip his feet out and his heel spurs. I'm kind of in there, aren't they? There's one. There's the other. There we go. All right, so we got the body, and we need to work up the wings. So let's turn them around. All right, these bits you're just going to fold in on themselves, like so. Keep these pulled out, and then you're going to swing these hinges up. Kind of collapse everything down. Turn here. And then you're going to bring these hinges in until they tab into the sides of this panel. And kind of fold the wings in at the same time. So you get that. And lastly, take this extra little thing attached to the back of his head, push that all the way in, and then spin his little head cannon thing around. All right, here we go. This is Scourge in his completed robot mode. He looks amazing. Like, this has got to be the most perfect representation of the, you know, cartoon character that we've seen really ever. I don't even know if a third party's matched this. This is really good. Go ahead and give him his blaster. I've gone and attached the fire blast effect to it. All right, so this is what we get. Now, in addition to looking awesome, Scourge is very articulated. So his head is on a ball joint, so it moves all around the place. Shoulders are universal. He's got the bicep swivel, single bend elbows. He has wrist swivel, but I gotta warn you, it's very tight. Now this one, I got some extra leverage because he's holding his little rifle. So it's not too bad. This hand in particular is really, really hard to turn. Like, to the point that I'm afraid I'm gonna snap a finger off. And it's a combination of, I think there's probably paint rubbing on the inside. I think they might have actually painted like the underside of the handpiece. And the fact that he's got his open fingers. So you don't get a lot of purchase. And again, I'm really worried that if I'm not careful, I could snap his thumb or one of his fingers off. So just be aware of that. Know it can happen. He does have full waist articulation, which is great. Got universal hips, very high thigh swivel, single bend knees, and ankle tilt. So he's got pretty much everything. And I gotta say, he's just gorgeous looking. I mean, this is an excellent, excellent representation of the character. Now, admittedly, his wings are a little kibbly. I forgot to mention, but push those in too. Kind of just did it naturally. They do have some extra stuff on them, which is kind of the Studio Series way, like whatever doesn't work, you just slap it on the back. But there's really only so much you can do, right? The cartoon designs were never meant to work in real life, so you gotta make some compromises. And, as long as it's on the back and it's not sticking way out there and looking ridiculous, I don't mind it. You gotta give somewhere, and I think this is an okay compromise. Now, I talked about his kind of empty spots that, they highlighted in his artwork for whatever reason. You can see here, his upper bicep, then here on the thighs. It's not terrible. In fact, as far as empty spots go, this is actually very mild. So he's very solid looking. The backs of his thighs are, you can see, quite empty, where the lower shell piece just kind of clips on to the joints there. So not the greatest, but not terrible because it's not completely empty. But it does look like he's kind of missing part of his chassis there. Other than that, he's near perfect, I gotta say. This guy just looks phenomenal. Now here's Scourge in front of his backdrop in my closest approximation of that still from the movie. And you can see off to the sides, you have the Insecticon's Kickback and Shrapnel, who are being reformatted into Scourge's sweeps. And Scourge himself, as we already know, was reformatted from Thundercracker, so we at least have some certainty on who these guys were. I really wish they would give us an official word on who Cyclonus is, like just definitive, once and for all. Bombshell or Skywarp, pick one. I'm inclined to believe Skywarp because the other two Insecticons became minions, so I would think Bombshell became another minion, but who knows. Here's a shot of Scourge with his past self, Thundercracker. And they do scale very well with each other. Scourge comes out a little bit taller, which is kind of fitting because he is supposed to be like an upgraded form of Thundercracker. And honestly, it's a cool shot for me. It's actually kind of tragic, right, when you think about Thundercracker being kind of the uncertain Decepticon who, given enough time, may have actually changed his ways, but instead just got brainwashed and reformatted into someone else. So kind of a sad story when you really think about it. Here's another look at the other Scourges. Again, Generations, Titans Return, new guy. Now I want to stress again that the Generation Scourge is an amazing, amazing toy. It has engineering built into it that's pretty well ahead of its time. Like, it's got universal hips and shoulders and all that. It's got wrist swivel. It's got ball jointed feet, which is a little outdated, but it's okay. It's got a fully posable head, waist swivel, articulated wings. I mean, he's just really, really cool. It's a very strong mold that I understand why it was so popular. This guy, on the other hand, while he is a lot more accurate to the original toy, he does have a lot of issues. His head and wrists are notoriously floppy, so he's got a QC problem right from the get-go. And a lot of people just don't like the fact that he's a headmaster. Now, personally, I'm not too put off by that, as long as the toy looks good, but I know a lot of people just really hate when they took non-headmaster characters and made them headmasters just for the sake of a line-wide gimmick. So, he is what he is. I see him as just kind of a direct update to the classic toy. But then we get to this guy right here, and he manages to do both modes very, very well. And, my stance on the toy accuracy versus cartoon accuracy is just do what works best, right? Whether it's one or the other, a blend of both. And I think in Scourge's case, his cartoon model just looks a lot better than his toy model. It's much more vibrant, much more interesting looking, more color breakup. It's got, the fabulous pink nails that he's become kind of famous for, and just better proportions, way more interesting looking. So, yeah, I think this guy is definitely the best out of the three. Sadly, I don't have the G1 Scourge to compare him to, because, who does? Except the most hardcore of G1 collectors. But I think it is safe to say that this guy is an improvement over that toy as well. And here's one more shot with his teammate Cyclonus. And again, he's fairly dwarfed by Cyclonus, but that is natural, that is in scale, so it's not an issue. And one thing that's kind of worth pointing out with this, so Cyclonus is a Transformers Kingdom toy, right? He's part of the War for Cybertron trilogy. And as such is fully compatible with the whole weaponizer system, right? He's got all the ports you'd expect. He's got the shoulders. Actually, well, he actually lacks the forearm ports. Well, he gets them on the bottom, I suppose. Back, shins, right? The ones on the bottom. So he's designed for that. We know he is. And if you look at Scourge, he's got all the same. He's got him on his shoulders. They actually made his little shoulder circles repurposed as 5mm ports. Forearms. He's got one on the back. Got him on his lower legs. And he's got him on his feet. So I think that he was definitely one of the figures that was designed for War for Cybertron that got moved. Just like Grimlock before him. I can't prove it, but given the similarities in their whole design philosophy, I think it's more or less a given that this guy was shuffled around a bit. Plus, it's kind of weird to separate him from his teammates across two toy lines, right? It does seem like he was just moved at some point. But yeah, these guys just look so cool together. I really hope the sweep rumor is true so you can kind of flesh out their army. I don't normally troop build, but I might get 2 sweeps. I could see 2. Especially since we know at least 2 of them exist because of, kickback and shrapnel. Okay, and one last quick thing to point out is that Scourge, like I think every version of the character, can wield his Battlemaster Fracas. Fracas was part of the Decepticon Phantom Strike Squadron and was notoriously hard to get, so don't be surprised if you don't have this guy. Came with, Skywarp and all them for Siege. But he can be wielded in either hand for Scourge. And, he just looks very cool. Now, unfortunately, it seems like this hand doesn't want to hold him very well because the open fingers. I kind of really push it in there. We'll go, though. So you can have him wield his target master partner if you so choose. Or you can give it to another version of him, or whatever you want to do. So it's really good that it works that way. Wish it worked a little better, honestly, because it really doesn't want to stay. But it is doable. So yeah, that I think wraps up our review of the new Studio Series Scourge toy. I have 0 issue with this figure whatsoever. The QC is phenomenal, the design is really great in all of his modes. The compatibility with War for Cybertron figures, despite being a Studio Series toy, is always a great plus. And I'm very happy with him. Now, he's not the towering behemoth that Cyclonus is, so you're not getting quite the same deal, but Cyclonus is a very exceptional Voyager, so I'm not going to hold Scourge to that standard. Scourge is very good for a modern Voyager. He hits all the beats that you'd expect for the posability and all that, the size, so I'm really happy with this guy. In fact, a lot more happy with him than I am with Hot Rod, who, my opinion, I'm sorry, is still just a deluxe with some accessories, so yeah, this guy I feel a lot more satisfied with for $30. Of course, that is just how I feel about this toy. Perhaps you feel differently. Are you as big a fan of the Scourge as I am, or do you find some fault with him where I don't? Is he your favorite version of the character so far, or do you have a different favorite? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Transformers Studio Series 86 Scourge. And with all that said, I will see you next time.